ever heard of the Uncanny Valley? Of course you have. Vsauce made a video about it, which automatically makes it common knowledge. However, if you do not know it, it pretty much means that something is very human-like, but not quite. It becomes quite unsettling. Usually, there is something about that object that you can't quite put your finger on, which makes it unsettling. This effect also exists in a non-creepy, non-human way. In science fiction you have different levels of plausibility. And now before you comment,
But GTA 5's not science fiction.
allow me to present the following counter-argument. Have you seen the things they've added to GTA lately? To get back to my point, which is so rudely interrupted in the vague scenario in my head, in GTA you have different levels of plausibility when it comes to vehicles. On one hand you have normal stuff that you can just find in real life, then the more you go to the right, the more you get vehicles that are based on real life, just multiple vehicles in one. And then all the way here you have the infamous Oppressor Mark II, which could only exist with some major suspension of disbelief. Lastly, we have the focus of this video, the infamous Uncanny Valley. Here live the vehicles that look modern enough to exist in real life, but there's something about them which makes it impossible. Something that's very hard to pin down. We will be talking about one of those vehicles in today's video. The vehicle has been part of the game for quite a while now. It's never really been talked about. It was one of the earliest implausible vehicles added to the game, starting the flood of other ridiculous vehicles. Today, however, it's a rare sight. It's barely used in free mode. Hell, I only see the missions where it's a requirement to use it. This vehicle is the Karen Technical Aqua. Didn't see anyone coming? Well, I'll be explaining myself and the unrealistic nature of this vehicle by looking at two things: the placement of the floaters and the buoyancy of them. Just two things. Small 25-minute adventure in and out. Now let me peek at the future and see your comment.
But Mega, the technical Aqua is based on the original vehicle.
And to that I say, first of all, you are wrong. It is actually based on two vehicles. Secondly, there are some major differences between them. First thing, the real deals have been created to be as watertight as possible, while the Aqua clearly is just a regular car. Nothing seems to be done to make it waterproof. There's not even counting the bullet holes in it. The thing can nearly be classified as an oversized strainer. But if you use the power of flex tape to make it watertight, there are still some major issues that prevent the technical Aqua from floating like it does in the game. You might be able to mention the main reason why the technical Aqua wouldn't work, but if you don't, allow me to demonstrate. Of course, the Aqua is a ruler, but I don't have a pickup truck or even a driver's license. Even if I did, I don't want to sink multiple pickup trucks just to prove a point. I also don't have animation skills, so I made a wooden mock-up. The Aqua has the waterproof quality of metal crocs, so the only thing that actually keeps it afloat are the two floaters from the back. This means I had to strap some weight to the truck. To imitate the floaters, I simply used blocks of styrofoam. If I toss in some water, you'll see it will quickly roll over. This is because the floaters are the only thing that's keeping the truck from sinking like a brick. And because the massive truck is not balanced around the floaters, it will roll around until the force of gravity and the buoyant force are aligned. But let's ignore that too for a moment. Let's pretend this thing will not rotate at all to balance the forces. Let's see if the buoyant force generated by the floaters will even be enough to keep the truck floating. First and foremost, we must create a free body diagram, which is a simplified drawing of the object with all forces, distances and moments that apply to it. To create the diagram, we must first acquire an Aqua. I could of course use a creator to give myself a nice bright yellow Aqua, but I don't know what to do with my money in the game anymore, so I just bought one. Since we're only concerned about forces, it doesn't really matter from which side we look. long as we can feed all the forces with their direction. Which means only the top and bottom view cannot be used. Even though the front view allows to separate both floaters, I'll take the side view because I'll use it later. Also to make it more clear that we're talking about a truck here and not a rectangle. We will have to keep in mind that the floater force actually comes from two floaters. Creating the outline of the shape, it will give us a starting 3-body diagram. Keep my select teacher from charging at me like SCP-096 and someone gives us picture will also be inserted in the access system. Since we're not doing official business here, we're free to choose our access system. Personally, I like to have it like this. Normally we should also put in a direction for the moments, which is the rotation caused by a force, but I'll do that at a later moment. Now we just place the forces. We'll start with the buoyant force. Keep things simple, place the force in the center of the barrel, remember, it's 2. I'll place this force pointing upwards. Next, we'll place the force of gravity, but where? For that we need to go on a tangent to find the center of mass of the system. Unfortunately, I could not find this online, so I have to do some work myself. 2 methods of finding the center of mass. Either you can do a big calculation where you cut the system into pieces, look at the moment contribution around a central point, and find the coordinates of the central point. Or you can just balance it on something which is what I did. So I loaded up the creator to create a deathmatch. I then placed the technical aqua, yellow of course, on the railing of a highway. I thought I had to push it a bit to get it to balance properly on the railing, but it seemed to balance well on its own. From this it can be seen that the center of gravity is roughly located halfway of the aqua. Since the forces are all vertical, the y coordinates of VG doesn't really matter, so I'll just place it at the same height as the buoyant force. We'll place the force of gravity originating at this point going down. These are all the forces at play, so our diagram is now complete. Let's now calculate the magnitude of these forces. First we will calculate the force of gravity. This is quite simple, but we will need to find out the mass. For the value of g I'll use 9.81 meters per second square, which is the value usually used in my country. The mass of the system consists of 4 parts: the truck, the floaters, the gun and the outboard engine. I'll assume that the floaters and the engine's mass can be neglected, since they're probably pretty light compared to the truck. I'll also assume that the mass of the gun can be neglected, because I do not want to end up on a watch list. So only the mass of the truck is left. Next, the mass. The Karen Technical Aqua is based on the Karen Technical, which is based on the Karen Mostly Rebel, which is based on the Karen Rebel, which is mostly based on the 4th generation Toyota Hilux, which has a weight, current weight on the Nitpick, of 1270 kg. Well, technically mass, but that's too nitpicky even for me to care. This leads to a force of roughly 12,000 newtons. Our floaters will overcome this force. Let's see if they can do it. Calculating the buoyant force is going to be a bit more difficult than the gravity, but not as difficult as it was for me to spell buoyant correctly in the script. Buoyant force is a result of Archimedes' principle, which states any object, wholly or partially immersed in the fluid, is buoyed up by a force equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by the object, or in terms of a formula. By the way, the weight here is the force, not the mass. Told you that technically what's the difference. To make this formula more useful, I'm going to scroll past all the maths that I really don't feel like doing myself, and get that the buoyant force equal to the density of fluid multiplied by the submerged volume and acceleration due to gravity. The floaters are cylindrical, so the volume can be expressed with their length and height. However, they're only submerged halfway, so we'll have to halve the volume. I used the same image I used to find CG to get dimensions of the floaters. The rho, f and g are given. From this we, or I know you're not calculating along, can calculate that the buoyant force of a single floater is 1324 newtons. This is unfortunately 5 times smaller than the force required to grab the float. But let's look at it the other way around. Let's see how big the floaters will have to be to support the truck. This means we'll have to flip the formula to find the volume. However, both dimensions of the floater are still variable, so let's assume the length and height keep the same proportion compared to each other. This leads to the following formula. We can faff around with the formula to get h. This leads to the following. According to Newton's first law, all forces at play should add up to 0. The buoyant forces of both floaters should add up to the force of gravity. This fact can be used to find the volume, which can then be used to find the height. Using the proportion between the height and the length can be found. This gives the needed height of 0.97 meters and a needed length of 1.72 meters, which looks like this. A bit impractical, isn't it? Now that we've looked at different reasons why the aqua won't work, let's make some attempts to improve the design. I came up with 3 improved versions. Let's take a look. The simplest solution is simply to move the floater to the center of gravity. However, with regular floaters, this will make the truck very unstable. Not to mention it will make the car inaccessible. With the increased floater size we calculated, the stability will be less of an issue, but it's still not the best time, thus it will definitely make it impossible to get in. To alleviate the issue of instability, we could grab 2 extra floaters and place them on the opposite side, 2 at the front, 2 at the back. We have more floaters now, which means we could also make them a bit smaller. Going for all the maps again, you can see that the height will be 0.77 meters and the length will be 1.36 meters. So it's still a bit impractical. Lastly, instead of putting all the floaters on the side, we can keep the rear floaters where they are and place one big floater on the front. In this case, the force equation may not be enough to find all the forces, so we may have to use the moments as well. We have to do this since the floaters are no longer in the same distance as the center of gravity, but the moments are no longer automatically balanced. We've calculated before the distance of the gravitational force located in the middle of the truck. Now we'll also quickly calculate the distance between the front and the floaters. This ended up being 85% of the full length. Now let's add in the first floater at the front. The floater is stuck to the front of the truck, though I used paint to create a free-body diagram, so it may not look like it. The force created by this floater may be different from the others. Its distance from the reference is simply half its diameter, which is its height. Since there are more forces now, the force equation looks a bit different. The buoyant force of the front floater, B2, added up to the buoyant force of the rear floaters, B, should cancel gravity, G. There's not much we can do with this, as both buoyant forces are unknown. Another part of Newton's first law, however, is that all moments should add up to 0, so let's try that. Though first we must pick a reference to calculate the moments. Let's choose the center of the front floater so we can ignore that force. Gravity pulls the truck clockwise, while the rear floaters pull counterclockwise. Together they should cancel out. A moment can simply be calculated by multiplying the force with its distance to the reference. With this in mind, the moment formula becomes the following. Or if you put the buoyant force in front, to make formulas really explode, let's replace the buoyant force in the force equation with this equation for the buoyant force, which leads to the following monstrosity. Now we only have 2 variables. However, as we saw previously, the buoyant force depends on the volume of the floater, which can be expressed in terms of length and height of the floater itself. For simplicity, let's assume the length of the floater spans the entire width of the truck. This will lead to the following formula for the buoyant force. Now we can make the force formula even more unreasonably large. This is a monster of a formula, however, there's only one variable in here, so it can be solved. Let's try to move this monster around in order to isolate the variable. What did I get myself into?
2,000 years later.
Right. So, what I've been able to gather is the following formula. Where alpha is... Since I'm lazy, I'm going to use the internet to solve the last part. After plugging it into Wolfram Alpha, it gave me the following solutions. Of these, only one is somewhat sensible. The diameter of the front floater is 0.44 meters, since negative heights aren't really possible here. So now let's go to the rear again. Here's the simple force formula once more. Or if we factor it around a bit, since we have the size of the front floater, we can now calculate B2, which ends up being 2430 newtons. This the B force can be calculated, which becomes 5040 newtons. Finally, we can find the size of the rear floaters. We've already seen the relevant formulas before, but here they are again. These formulas tell us that the rear floaters will have a height of 0.9 meters and a length of 1.6 meters, which is barely any better than the other solutions. As it turns out, there's no way to make the technical Aqua actually float the way it's supposed to, even though it's based on 2 real vehicles that can float. Or maybe you can and I'm just not smart enough to figure it out. Sure, you could move floats around, do better precision, add extra floaters, and make the floats bigger, but by the end of the day the floats have to be so big that the Aqua becomes completely unusable. Maybe you could fill the floats with helium or hydrogen to make them more buoyant, but that would only make the calculations more complex, and I don't really feel like doing that right now. Maybe in a future video, who knows? You know, I no longer feel the same way about the Aqua as I did when it first came out. Despite it being just as unrealistic as the things that came afterwards, it doesn't feel as much out of place as the other stuff. The style of the car just fits in with the rest. I mean, isn't that just as important? Like, I thought GTA was very realistic to begin with, but at least there was some consistency in the style and stuff, until they also threw that out of the window. So yeah, that was the video. Thank all y'all for watching. This whole new type of video for me, so hopefully it turned out alright. Maybe I'll do more in the future and find more things to nitpick and character threads. But anyway, I've been MegaMGstudios. Bye! Before I really let all y'all go, I want to give a big thanks to my brother GameSoul, who actually knows how to write or proofreading the script. Except this little part, he doesn't know this part exists, so he'll probably figure it out once I force him to watch this video for me. I also want to thank my mom for helping me create the vest you see me wearing in the video, this army vest. It actually started out as an army print t-shirt from a local fishing store. She somehow managed to turn it into this with a few photos and instructions from me. No way I could have made it myself. Too terrible at stuff for that, as you could have probably seen from the wooden mock-up in this video. But yeah, lastly I want to thank some IRL friends of mine who gave this hat to me like 8 years ago for my 18th birthday. It's inspired this entire costume. Now it's crank.